Now, the fallout continues from Wednesday's mob attack on the US Capitol by supporters of Donald Trump. Several of the president's aides and 2 cabinet members have resigned, and there are increasingly loud calls for him to be removed from office. 5 people, including a police officer, have now died as a result of the violent protests, and at least 68 have been arrested. Trump had encouraged supporters to march on the Capitol building, where a joint session of Congress was certifying Joe Biden as president-elect. Well, US industry groups and chief executives from some of the nation's largest companies have called on President Trump and other officials to put an end to the unrest and deliver a peaceful transition of power. The Business Roundtable group of chief executives has tweeted, it says the chaos unfolding in the nation's capital is a result of unlawful efforts to overturn the legitimate results of a democratic election. The country deserves better, it says. The National Association of Manufacturers has also commented. It also called on what it called the people who stormed the Capitol armed thugs, and has called on Vice President Mike Pence to seriously consider working with the Cabinet to invoke the 25th Amendment, that's the amendment that could remove President Trump from office and preserve democracy. So let's speak to Stormy Mildner, who is head of the Aspen Institute Germany and a leading expert on transatlantic relations. It's great to have you on DW Business. The United States partners in Europe must be watching developments in Washington with their mouths agape.
Oh, absolutely. And you could see it in their speeches and in their comments on Wednesday and also on Thursday. The leadership in the European Union and the head of states of the European countries are extremely worried. In a sense, what happened on Wednesday on Capitol shouldn't really surprise anybody after the last 4 years and after the last couple of weeks when President Trump repeatedly fueled the hate and also the potential of violence of his supporters. But nonetheless, I mean, it's really, really worrisome what happened on Wednesday. And it also shows what huge task Joe Biden is going to face in his presidency. And it tells European leaders also that his look is going to be inwards in the beginning.
Yeah, why is it important for America's trade allies in particular that the institutions in Washington are seen to be stable? The United States are Germany's most important export partner.
We are extremely interdependent when it comes to economics, to trade, to investment, but also there are a lot of European companies in the United States. So what happens in the Capitol has an immediate effect also on the economies of the European states, let alone on world politics. So it's extremely important to watch what's happening in the United States. We are just so important trading partners for each other.
And there are now tangible efforts to have President Trump removed from office even before the 20th of January when he's due to leave. Is that something that allies would welcome?
Well, what they would certainly welcome is a peaceful transition. If we look at the prospects for the U.S. economy for the next year, it still looks pretty bleak. We know that the slump in the economy it's a crisis really on so many fronts, the health crisis, the social crisis, but growth dropped by about 4%, the IMF estimates for 2020, and it will take many, many years until the economy really comes back to the state it was before the crisis. So President Biden really needs all hands on board, and he needs bipartisan support to build back the economy better as he is planning for infrastructure investment, for health investment, for investment in education, to address the inequality. That will take a almost inhuman effort on both sides of the aisle. And for this, we need a really peaceful transition and not the continuous in-house fighting, also among the Republican Party.
Stormy Mildner, head of the Aspen Institute Germany. Thank you so much for joining us on DW Business.
Well, thanks for having me.
Now let's speak to President of the American Chamber of Commerce in Germany, Frank Sportolari. It's great to have you on DW Business. Now, we don't normally see chief executives, industry groups commenting on political developments. Why are they so keen this time round to call for calm in Washington?
Well, I mean, what we've seen is also something that we, thank goodness, don't see happen very often. A mob of enraged citizens stormed into the U.S. Capitol. For me as an American, that was shocking, horrifying, and actually quite embarrassing to have the world see. So that, is an extreme circumstance, and I think it's not a surprise that people are very, very concerned about where this could all end and want cooler heads now to prevail, which fortunately I believe is what's going to happen.
What about businesses outside of the US, for example here in Germany, that work with the United States? How important is it for them that the institutions there are seen to be stable?
Actually, that's interesting you mentioned that very point, because we do an annual survey we call our Business Barometer, and it touches on the things that are viewed as positive and negative by American companies in Germany and German companies in America. And one of the things that over the past few years has been increasingly looked at as negative is the political stability in the U.S. And certainly the scenes that we saw yesterday evening on TV were very disturbing. However, I will point out what happened at the end. Democracy flourished, right? They went until 4 o'clock the next morning, got their work done. There's a new president elected, and President Trump has agreed, to transit power. So you could, if you want to view it as half full or more than half full, the U.S. democracy stood up to the test.
Nevertheless, what this has made quite clear is that President Biden, when he takes office, is going to have to be looking more domestically than we might have thought. There's more problems to sort out there, not looking outwardly as trading partners might have hoped. So what sort of implication does that have for those who were hoping to improve their relationship with the US in the coming 4 years or so?
Well, first I would point out, during the past 4 years, we've had a lot of turbulence. We've had unexpected tariffs. We've had all kinds of conflicts that were not imaginable 5 or 6 years ago. Transatlantic business has continued to be very strong. And oftentimes we focus on the headlines of trade negotiations or big companies or this and that. In fact, the backbone of this business is, particularly from the German side, all the medium size, the famous Mittelstand that goes to the U.S. and is very successful there. And that has gone on unbroken. I mean, if you let Washington off to the side and go out, to Nebraska, to Illinois, to where people set up their companies and work, there's an unbroken interest in penetrating the U.S. market. It's a vibrant market. It's fast growing. I think any German company would be very foolish to let itself be put off by what's transpired over the past years, or particularly the past couple of days.
And what are you hearing from businesses? Are they repositioning themselves for a new administration in the United States?
Well, we did a snap survey of our members after the election, both before and after the election. Before the election, everyone said we'd prefer a change of administration. After the election, basically 90% of our members said, good, this is going to be something that's good for us. And certainly, President Biden has a whole COVID first, getting the economy going, et cetera. And you can say those are domestic issues, but are they really? I mean, BioNTech and Pfizer are cooperating. Even, if he comes up with an infrastructure bill, that will require all kinds of expertise from companies, that are very prevalent in Germany. So nowadays, we view the entire marketplace as transatlantic, and I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities once we start getting politics back to normal, if I can say it that way, and dealing with each other as partners. I think the optimism is justified, knowing that we're not overnight going to go back to a world where everything was perfect.
Well, Frank Sportolari, President of the American Chamber of Commerce here in Germany, thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Let's cross to our financial correspondent in Frankfurt now. Chelsea Delaney joins us on DW Business. And Washington remains in a state of disarray, but how are markets taking it?
Well, it's been record highs left and right over the past couple of days. Here in Frankfurt, the DAX is hitting another record high for the second day in a row. The S&P 500, the Dow, the NASDAQ in the U.S., the Tokyo Index all have hit record highs over the past couple of days. So there's an obvious contradiction between what we've seen in terms of the political drama in the United States, as well as the continued spread of the coronavirus, the increasingly alarming calls from hospital sectors, the lockdowns that we're seeing extended across the world. All of that's quite negative, but investors completely brushing that off and really looking towards the future, which now looks like a Biden administration in the U.S. that could really pass a strong and large stimulus bill that would benefit the rest of the world, as well as the vaccine rollout. So all of that giving investors a lot of optimism.
Chelsea Delaney in Frankfurt, thanks for the update.